Hey, everybody. Good morning. Let me say it is my honor to be able to introduce our next guest, Petro Poroshenko. He's with us from Ukraine. There's a lot going on in Ukraine, as we know, and we have seen him from day one, out there standing firm, talking about the people, talking about the relationship with the United States of America. He was the 5th president of Ukraine, elected, and shortly after he was elected, came to Washington, D.C., and addressed a joint session of Congress and really put out an open vision for what Ukraine can be, what Ukraine should be. And I think we see now in the war in Ukraine the heroism of the Ukrainian people that he's talked about. So with that, I want to introduce President Petro Poroshenko. Mr. Poroshenko, Mr. President, great to have you with us today. Let me just open this up as, we're at the McCain Institute. Obviously, Senator McCain, and my friendship with him too, he was known for standing tough. He was known for having moral clarity in what he believes. And I think you have that reputation too. So let me just open it up and ask you, Mr. President, give us a feeling of what's going on in Ukraine right now. Give us an idea of what you need and any other thoughts you have, and I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency, Ambassador McCain, dear Cindy. Such a great pleasure to see you again after our last meeting in Halifax. Dear Adam Kinzinger, thank you for such a great introduction. Dear members of US Congress, by the way, thank all of you for the Land-Lease Act you vote. You cannot imagine how important this message is for us. Not only for me as the 5th president who fight for this Land-Lease Act, but for every single soldier who is now with the weapons in the hands to fight against Russian aggressor. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm grateful to the McCain Institute for the invitation to join Sedona Forum discussion this morning, and it is a pleasure and great honor for me. Such an exchange of views brings me back in memories of our long, frank, and very useful talk with my good friend, Senator John McCain, who, if you allow me to say so, was a kind of mentor for me as a politician, as a state actor, and as a president. John is always in my heart and in my memory. Till his last breath, Senator McCain was fighting back to back with Ukraine in our struggle for independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity against Russian aggression. As the 5th president of Ukraine who led Ukrainian resistance during first 5 years of this war, and you are, Adam, absolutely right that it was such a powerful push for creating armed forces of Ukraine in year 2014 on the Washington enjoying session. I would like to sincerely thank Senator McCain in particular, the United States Congress, and the United States in general for the strong leadership and unwavering support of our nation. Despite the fact that the fighting is raging on the territory of Ukraine, this war, you are absolutely right, is our common challenge with the enormous geopolitical consequences. Its outcome will determine the future of Ukraine, future of Europe, and definitely future of the democratic world. Therefore, we must be united. We must fight together to win this war. Dear friends, we have entered to the 3rd month of the open, large-scale bloody war. Putin thought to take Ukraine in a couple of days, and we are fighting for 66 days already. It is the 3rd month of Ukraine's resilient struggle against the Russian invasion. Ukraine surprised the world with the strength and courage, and we don't have any doubts for our victory, even when the Russian tanks stay 7 kilometers from here, from Kiev, from my headquarters of the battalion. Based on the developments of the battlefield and the round, I would like to share with you my 5 key conclusions on the situation. First, this war is neither about helping Donbass, nor about protecting Russian people, Russian language, Russian church, nor about opposing NATO enlargement. Rather opposite. Putin has weaponized language in order to justify his territorial claims and imperialistic fantasies about so-called Russian historic land. So now any Russia's neighboring countries with the Russian-speaking population can feel secure now. Putin's regime has launched this invasion to destroy Ukrainian statehood and to erase Ukrainian nation from the map of the world and from human history. For Putin, Ukraine is a fake state. And the idea of Ukrainian identity is total heresy, which must be cleansed once and for all. Dozens of thousands of our citizens in temporarily occupied territories who dared to recognize themselves as Ukrainian, as pro-European, found their death from the hands of the Russian butchers. The mass graves in Bucha, Borodyanka, Irpin, Mariupol, Akhtirka, Chernigov, and dozens other towns and villages are full of Ukrainian patriots and Ukrainian intellectuals. The big mobile crematorium, can you imagine, working day and night in the Russia-occupied territories to burn the killed Ukrainians to the dust. This is about the evil symbolism, not leave any trace of Ukrainian identity for the future generation. Should we fail to counter Russian invasion, such fate will expect every Ukrainian. We don't have any illusion. Dozens of millions of Ukrainians. As we say, if Russia stopped firing, war will end. If Ukraine stopped firing, Ukraine will disappear. And I would like to add, if Ukraine fails, rule-based order will be over. Therefore, be sure that we are ready to fight till the end to save Ukraine from the elimination. Second, Putin is obsessed with the idea of restoring Russia's imperial greatness, which is based on the aggression, conquest, and the mass ethnic cleansing. Russia seeks to seize new territories, biggest country in the world, and not only Ukraine. Russian provocation in Transnistria increased security risks for Moldova. We can see Putin's anger against Finland and Sweden for their potential joining the alliance. And there is a growing propaganda of hatred against Baltic states, against Poland, against Slovakia, other Central and Eastern European countries. Therefore, be sure that the Putin's regime will not stop. He is not stopping Ukraine. He will not stop the aggression. And Russia is preparing to the war with the whole democratic world. The free world must unite and repel the Putin's regime and weaken its aggressive appetites as much as possible, and ultimately deputinize Russia and deputinize world politics. Third, Putin's strategic plans for blitzkrieg in Ukraine failed, and now his war is being stuck gradually. He was not prepared for so long fight. The myth of the second strongest army in the world has completely disappeared. Russian army has appeared to be the Soviet-style army of the 20th century. He has underestimated the strength and resilience of the Ukrainian army, which we have been reforming, and at the end of the day, created in the year 2014, from the first day of my presidency, to the powerful NATO standard military force of the 21st century. Together with you on the Yavoriv polygon in Lviv region, American battalion was shoulder to shoulder with me for training Ukrainian soldiers. And Putin's army did not gain any strategic advantage. Instead, Russian mothers have already lost about 23,200 of their sons and daughters in freedom-loving Ukrainian lands. Russian military lost more than, can you imagine, 1,000 tanks, about 2,500 armored combat vehicles, 190 aircraft, 155 helicopters. These losses are already far higher than most European armies have in their position. But crazy Putin is not stopping. He continues his bloody war of aggression. He is ready to sacrifice Russian soldiers in the name of his own propaganda as Russia is approaching the Victory Day, the new religion Putin has established in the country. Beyond Wagner's fighters, Putin even engaged mercenaries from Syria, Libya, Ethiopia to fight on his side. And today the Russian army are focused in the east and south of Ukraine. We throw him away from Kiev, Poltava, Chernihiv, Sumy. And I'm sure that Putin will be very disappointed. Victory would be ours. And we definitely confident on them. And the more worlds help us, the sooner we will defeat the Putin's regime. Fourth, when Putin launched his unjustified and unprovoked war against my country, he made a mistake that will cost him a lot, if not everything. He underestimated the resilience of Ukrainian. He underestimated the resistance of the collective West, all of you. And he believed that the United States would be weak and not capable to unite the world. He trusted that none among the democracies will dare to respond. He thought to teach you a lesson. Instead, it is for all of us to teach him a lesson. The lessons about the rules upon which this world is based. No country shall change the borders of another country by force. The lesson about values which are dear to all of us. The power of force cannot suppress the power of choice of a democratic nation. Nobody shall have a veto on the destiny of another nation. And the lesson about the democratic alliance. We are not a weak substance. We are not afraid to face the aggression. We are ready to bite in response those who dare to attack us. We have proven that we can defend democracy. And I'm sure Senator McCain would be extremely happy to see such a strong and efficient United States leadership in the world. This is exactly his style. I recall his commitment to strong Western alliance, to the responsibility of the Washington to lead in the world by example and action against the forces of evil where he thought Russia belonged. He tell me exactly these things. And the fifth, Putin regime will pay in full for all atrocities he has brought to this world. Enough is enough. And this country constructed by Putin during his 2 decades in power is designed for aggression, violation of every rule, and ultimately it was created for the war. It all started not against the night of February 24th, 2022, when Putin started firing his cruise missiles all over Ukraine. It all started back in 2000, when he first came to power in the Kremlin. He established an inhuman regime in Russia, enslaved the nation, chased out every opposition voice, and suppressed every freedom in Russia. He had been getting prepared for the war for years, if not for decades. Putin's war crimes traced to Chechnya and Georgia, Syria, Moldova, now in Ukraine. Its assassination on the streets of Berlin and Salisbury and Moscow, and definitely Kiev and Ukrainian cities. Now thousands of cruise missiles, bombs, and artillery shells are erasing Ukrainian towns, killing dozens of thousands Ukrainian citizens of any ethnic origin, even Russian, and of any age. He uses international prohibited weapons. He expert the terrorist act and the he creates humanitarian catastrophes in Ukrainian cities. He kidnaps children, Putin's in so arrogant that he ordered to send a cruise missiles against Kiev at the moment when the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, was a meeting with President Zelensky. By the way, he killed a journalist from the Radio Liberty exactly by these missiles. Missiles exploded a mile away from the place of their meeting. We must bring Putin and his regime before the International Tribunal for the crimes against humanity and for the genocide against Ukrainians, including by means of the Bucha list, a kind of Magnitsky list that you already have. And this is extremely important to have this draft law in United States and throughout the world. We need to introduce another additional sanction every single day while Putin do not stop it. However, we should not be naive that Putin is the only problem. He poisoning Russian people, and this Russian disease has to be properly cured. And the Russian people must also acknowledge their responsibility as well, not only for the crime of Putin's regime, but finally for the crimes of past Soviet regime must be properly assessed and condemned by the Russian people themselves. Otherwise, we will witness the repetition of the aggression in a very few years. Dear colleagues, often in the media and at the meeting, they ask me about possible compromise and concession that Ukraine could agree with to make peace with Russia. But Ukraine does not trade our territories, does not trade its history, does not trade its European and Euro-Atlantic future. And from today's perspective, it is more than clear that Putin considers compromises as a sign of weakness and as a tactical pause to prepare for the new offensive. And it cannot last forever, especially after Putin has openly declared his intention to solve finally the Ukrainian issue. Haven't we had similar goals in the darkest day of our history? That's why the world must help Ukraine to defeat Putin's Russia, destroy Putin's regime. And by doing so, please help us to save you, help us to save the world. Once in the year 2007, Putin confessed that the dissolution of the Soviet Union was the major geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. Not the First World War, not the Second World War. Today, Putin creates the biggest geopolitical catastrophe in the century to 21. First, he started the war against Ukraine and the West. Now he threatens that the war will mean more with a nuclear war, lightning fast response, as he said. We shall to stop Putin in Ukraine and stop him now. We believe that the path to victory over Putin regime goes through 5 powerful weapons. First, more international solidarity and political support of Ukraine. Second, more destructive sanction against Russia. Every day, as I said, new sanction. Now we need oil embargo, then gas embargo, and I am very grateful for the strong US position of this issue, but we need more pressure of our European partners to stop trade values and security for cheap gas. Putin is using money for energy resources, not for welfare of Russian citizens, but for the invention of new missiles to kill and to blackmail the free world. We need total blockade of Russian ships. Can you imagine that now Russian ships totally blockade Ukraine, blockade Odessa, Yuzhny, and we definitely need to stop that. We need embargo on critical import from Russia. We think that definitely exists some categories of goods which Russia cannot take elsewhere. Strike, they make Russia understand and suffer the cost of an invasion of violation of international law and order. 3, more new defense and offensive weapons to protect and liberate Ukrainian territories from Russian invaders. I thank United States Congress for their very brave decisions for Lend-Lease, for support for 33 billion to support Ukraine. It's a turning point in this war. And I'm happy that Ukraine was head and supported by US. Ukraine's fight for the whole world, and thus your weapons, we need to act equal and bypass Russians in the battlefield. Putin will not be stopped with the words and concerns. He can be stopped with the weapons and resolve. The more Ukraine receive in the terms of the weapons, the sooner the war will be over and the Putin gets out of Ukraine with no more challenges to peace, stability, and security of the united Europe and of the whole free world. 4th, more financial and economic assistance for the post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. Initiative to create so-called Marshall Plan, Biden Plan, Biden-Johnson-Michel Plan. And it's a time to think about the design of this plan. It must help to send foundation of a new European Ukraine for the democratic, prosperous, and secure Ukraine, clean and transparent. And as of today, the economic losses of Ukraine and results of Russian aggression are approaching to the $0.1 trillion USD. And the war is not over yet. And 5th, swift granting Ukraine with the status of the candidate country for the EU membership. And this should happen this year, as well as membership action plan to NATO this year. It is clear that the membership in the NATO is only efficient guarantee for our security. And who knows if in the year 2008, Ukraine had been granted membership action plan, there would have been no aggression in 2014 and no war in 2022, respectively. Because where the NATO is, there is a peace. Where Russia is, there is a war. That's why, dear friend, Ukraine is your brother in arms and your brother in faith. Today's war that Russia started in Ukraine is your war as well. This is our common war for democracy to withstand and for autocracy to finally fail. Let us be clear. Russia is seen by many autocracies around the globe as a martyr. Russia will lose and thus make our democratic posture globally much stronger. My bet, and I believe that would be the bet of John McCain, is on democracy to withstand and to win the battle. We simply have no right to fail. And in these circumstances, it is very important to maintain our unity in order to stop Putin together and drive him out of Ukraine. Again, help us to save you. Thank all of you. Glory to Ukraine and glory to the United States. Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine. Mr. President, we thank you for your leadership. We thank you for your time. And from the McCain Institute, we want to pass to every Ukrainian around the world, and particularly those currently on the front lines of the fight for all of us, our best. We will send our weapons. We will send money. You will do the fighting. Just as importantly, we send our thoughts and prayers to the people of Ukraine and the unbreakable spirit of the Ukrainian people that we have seen as an inspiration to all of us. I want to say that, sometimes people wonder if democracy's worth it. Sometimes people wonder if the fight's worth it. Sometimes it seems like authoritarianism is easier, and it may actually be easier to let somebody tell you what to do. But I think the people of Ukraine have shown the world that democracy is worth the sacrifice, and it is worth the fight. So from here in the shadow of John McCain with the spirit of John McCain, we send you our best, and we thank you for all that you have done. And again, Slava Ukraine. Thanks.
Героям слава. Thank you.
Thank you.